Today, we are going to go through a test to find out if overseeding really works and how well overseeding works for your lawn. Welcome back, everybody. This is Mike with Jealous Lawn Care, and today, yes, you can tell, I have 1, 2, 3 flags that we are going to do 3 tests on. You guys love these videos of tests and proofs that I do on lawn care, so without further ado, here's another test. So what are we going to test today, you ask? We've tested a lot of things. We've tested fertilizer, aeration, we've tested dethatching, we've done a lot of different tests, weed and feed products, pre-emergence. The list goes on and on and on, right? How to get your grass the greenest, what to do during different times of the year, different applications. But today, what is our test going to be on? Today, our test is going to be very specific, as we always do. Very specific. This is all going to be about overseeding. A lot of debate back and forth goes on about whether overseeding really does enough or really does anything at all. There's a lot of people, again, different grass types. There's going to be differences, of course, whether some need it more, some need it less, the way different types of grass grow, of course, all different scenarios. But this is just going to be a very uniform video on overseeding your lawn with grass seed. All right, now this plane has passed us, I can talk again. So what are our 3 tests going to be? I'm going to rip up once again, yes, I'm going to rip up my beautiful lawn that I seeded, was it 2 years ago now? Last year I gave you a 1-year update, so you can tell grass is still nice. Yes, again, it's not all perfectly green because of the fact that it is very early spring. But you can tell by the sleeves that, yes, we hit 80 today, so sleeves are out, and here we are. It is time to put down the seed and get some of that free watering for spring. Usually I'm not much of a fan of seeding in the springtime as I am the fall, because I like to do it along with my aeration, but you guys have seen that in my other videos, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse with that and repeat and regurgitate. So here we are. We're going to get started. 3 different tests. What we're going to do is test how well the overseeding actually works. First test, what we're going to do, we'll call this stake number 1. That is going to be me seeding as good as I can, meaning I'm going to do what I've done in the past videos where I basically strip up the lawn, I'm going to cut out the grass, cut out a nice square, and then I'm going to seed as I normally do. And when I say normally do, this is best case scenario. This is what I think we should all be doing. If we're going to be spending, let's say, a month watering, we should be doing what we do in test number 1, in my opinion. Of course, we all not have the time and energy to do all that, but what I'm going to do is rip up the ground, cut this whole section out, and replace it, mix up the dirt, make it nice and fluffy, none of that hard compacted soil, okay? And one more thing with the first test, we're going to use a generous amount of seed, we'll say, just like we always do. Seed's cheap. I know seed's not cheap, but seed is cheap when you talk about relative to the time and water and energy you spend watering, a couple times a day. So seed is relatively cheap in that aspect, right? You want to make sure you get it done right. Don't leave anything by chance. Then, blue flag, test number 2. What we're going to do here is we are going to overseed. Just as simple as you would overseed. We're not going to use as much seed as in the first test. We're going to use a simple overseeding with my spreader. Okay, this will represent a pure overseeding application, as good as I can. Of course, it's not going to have all this other grass to compare against, or compete with, I should say, but this is going to be untilled soil. So we're not going to rip up the ground and then cover it with dirt and then put in a little more seed. This is just going to mimic an exact overseeding application, okay? Then, test number 3. We are going to find out in test number 3 if you really do need to till the soil. Maybe it's the matter of seed. I know there's a lot of you, myself included, who when you're doing overseeding, like I said, seed is relatively cheap compared to the price of everything else we talked about, watering, time. But what we're going to do here is lay down a heavy-handed application of seeding. Okay, like we always like to do with seeding, Milorganite, fertilizer, all the good stuff. So we're going to put down a lot of seed here. Okay, more than the overseeding, of course, but this is what we want to do. We're going to test on untilled soil. We're not going to mess with it. So the soil conditions between test number 2 and test number 3 will be the same, meaning it will be harder, we'll say. It's just not going to be all fluffy and best scenario like you would be if you're tilling it up and, you know, raking up the ground yourself and mixing it in. And just to take one more aspect out of test number 1 that has nothing to do with the other tests, I'm going to use the same soil. So I'm not going to replace it with new dirt. I'm just going to fluff it up and till it up, okay? I'm not going to put in any manure or any, you know, better soil or worse soil. We're just going to use all the ground soil for all 3 tests. That'll take one more aspect or difference out of the equation, all right? So it's strictly testing overseeding between all 3. Tilling up the ground, but obviously this is going to be best case. Most likely if you have a whole bunch of bare spots due to, you know, a bad fall, bad winter, burned in the summer, had some disease problems or something like that, this is going to be a lot of energy and a lot of work if you actually till it up and do it all right. Then we come on to the real moneymaker. Test number 2 or test number 3. Is it even worth it? Is it worth using just a normal overseeding application as recommended by the bag, or heavy seeding? Is it worth all that extra seed you're throwing down? And to keep in mind, test number 2, I'm going to repeat it later because it's very important. Seed on the grass seed bags, they have a separate spreader setting, higher or lower as far as how much seed comes out for overseeding rates versus basically we'll call it barren or not established grass yet. All right, so that's what I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using the higher setting just to make sure, because this is probably not going to fill all the way up. I'd be really surprised if this entire thing filled as much as the other 2 tests, but that's not exactly what we're testing here. We're just testing how well it grows. Now all 3 grass tests, fingers crossed, right, should grow grass, right? But it's possible that test number 2 and test number 3 might not actually grow grass, just because of the fact that if your grass seed is just laying on top, if you're using too much water and you actually have puddles, you don't want that, because again, if you have puddles, it's going to be moving the grass seed all around. You might even lose it because of the fact that it's not compacted down. And sure, you can use a roller, you know, that's another test in itself. You can do a roller on it and stuff like that. I know a lot of people do. Again, as long as you can have a good base of soil and you're not flooding it, you're just doing a moist watering, you know, just like a rain. Just make it moist. Keep it moist 3 times a day, and that should be enough to grow. But is it possible that the birds are going to be eating this seed off of it because they can see it on the top versus the buried seed that we're going to have in our test number 1? So this is what we're going to find out. And also test number 2 and test number 3, since it's laying on top, does the grass seed actually have enough seed to soil contact? Because that's one of the most important things. And the 2 most important things for growing grass seed, if you failed in grass seeding in the past, this is most likely your problem. 1, you didn't keep the soil moist. So you need to keep the soil moist, seed moist, not flooding it again, just moist, just a normal watering schedule. Then the second problem, which you could do, is you might not have enough seed to soil contact. Very important. It's those 2 things that makes 90% of seedings fail. So that's what we're going to do. I hate to rip up this grass again, but I don't know. It's the easiest place to water, and I don't have any outside factors like shade or too much sun. It's the same as I've done in the past, and you guys have loved it, and it's worked out well. So without further ado, I'm just going to rip this up right now. Here we are. We're going to have 3 new holes for us to test. All right, now as we learned from the last video, instead of taking giant chunks out of your grass, if you're ever cutting your own grass out, which hopefully not too many are doing these crazy things like I am, just take small chunks like this. This is a much better way to easily handle the load. So you can take little chunks like that, and there you are. So guess what I figured out? I figured out that my methodology or plan isn't perfect. Maybe you guys have already figured it out, but how am I gonna remove the existing grass and also keep a solid base like the rest of the lawn? Can't really do that, right? So a little bit of the plan has changed, but not too bad. Shouldn't affect what you guys are seeing, but I'm just gonna have to delay my video a little bit longer than expected. So basically now, in order to level it out and not have a huge dip, so what my new plan is now is put down all new just cheapo topsoil all throughout, get it all level, and then I'm gonna press on it, you know, get a roller or something real heavy so I can push on these two tests, test 2 and test 3, in order to mimic the existing soil condition of the rest of my lawn. So that's the new game plan, everybody, is I'm gonna get a roller or something really heavy to push onto tests 2 and 3 after I'm done putting in this new fresh soil. I'm gonna leave test 1 as is, and then I'm going to mimic the existing soil condition of the rest of my lawn for overseeding purposes like we're doing in tests 2 and 3. All right, so here I am leveling it out. And in the meantime, you can listen to this plane flying over me. Good time to test the new microphone also. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Even with the plane flying over, still good? So again, remember when you're doing this, wasn't planning on talking about this, but hey, perfect opportunity, because we had to add new soil. Anytime you're adding new soil, it will always condense. So if I'm going to step on this, you can tell that this is now recessed. So this new compressed area, this is more like the rest of your soil, hard, compact soil. Even though you aerate, of course, that's great, but you're still gonna have harder compacted soil than this new fluffy stuff. So my point of doing this is just for you to realize that whenever you're putting new soil in, to make sure you put it above the grade level that you want, because it will always recess lower after it rains, after it settles. So you guys don't need to see the rest of this. This is going to be pretty self-explanatory, just like the other videos I've done where I'm leveling the ground and making it hard and compacted in order to mimic the test. All right, so I'm going to put on another thing of topsoil here, and then I am going to get a roller or something heavy to roll over this 2 sections here. And then we will be at our ideal testing stage. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to wait for a good rain and so forth in order for it to really compress and compact like the rest of the lawn. So I'll wait maybe 2 weeks or something like that until I actually seed again or do my test here, because I want to make sure that the ground is the ideal conditions for our test here. I want to make sure it's got the same hardness as it should. All right, hope you guys are appreciating this. Unfortunately, it's taking a little bit longer. It's going to be a little delayed video. I know you guys are anxious to see new tests. We all are. I'm anxious myself to see how well they work, which one works the best and which one works the worst. So stay tuned. It'll be a couple more weeks and we'll see the update. All right, it is now time for our seeding test. Again, first test here, it's nice and fluffy. The rest of the 2 is hard compacted soil. You can see how hard it is, just like normal would be, versus the fluffiness. Then what I always like to do is fluff on just a little bit more dirt, just so that the birds don't take away all the seed. Just a real thin layer, you know, quarter, eighth of an inch, all that really needed. And that will do it. So have good coverage all the way around. Minus these sticks from my cheap soil that I'm using. All right. And then, just for the heck of it, like I always love to do, let's do a real light on top seeding. Just in case we mixed a little bad last time. Now I'm going to use Scott's Kentucky Bluegrass, and again, I've used it all throughout. I like to use this just to match the rest of my lawn. So, remember I was saying that the difference for the seeding applications, or I should say spreading applications, will be on the bag. So overseeding, for my rotary spreader, I'd be using a 3. However, I'm going to be doing it a little more than usual, just to make it a little closer for a contest. So this is all bare, just like it would be on a new lawn. So the new lawn is going to make my spreader setting a 5.5. So that's going to open up the spreader quite a bit more than if I was just doing an overseeding application. So I don't really care about covering up this section or covering up this section, just because this section and this section, tests 1 and 3, are going to be heavy-handed seeding, just like hopefully we are doing already. So let me move my tools here, edge guard on, because I don't want it on the patio. And there we are. This is a 5.5 spreader setting. Okay, pretty generous amount of seed. Give you a little zoomed in picture here. So that was my first test, the generous amount of seeding. Second test is the 5.5 new lawn spreader setting. And of course it's going to be uniform here, but that's a pretty decent amount. All right, now let's go heavy-handed, like hopefully you guys are all doing at home. So best case, just throw it down a lot, right? This is just to see if using more seed while overseeding really does anything. Is it needed? And I'm not going to cover up this with dirt like I was telling you before. So I'm going to have a nice straight line between these. All right, one quick review of our seed tests here. So first test is seeding with tilled soil, meaning what we think should be done in order for best rate and application. Don't want to waste your time, do it right, you do this. Then test number 2 here, this is our seeding, our overseeding application, just like it would mimic your overseeding, except I used a little bit more than the overseed rate, just because it is really bare here. And then test number 3, using compacted soil, just like test number 2. Test number 2 and 3 both have compacted soil, except that test number 3 is a really heavy-handed seeding application. Now, I'm going to do a light watering, and we will call it a day. All right, now here is our very light watering. Like I said, it's just going to be pretty much a sprinkle, just to mimic rain. I mean, it's going to be very quick. Don't want to spread the seed all over the place by actually drowning it. So that's all it's going to be. All right, so that's our test for today. Now we will check back in probably a week, and then we'll probably do it week by week. We all know Kentucky Bluegrass takes a little bit over a week in order to start germinating and show growth. Now, very important, my recommended watering schedule. This is, again, one of the most important things in my opinion as far as why people are failing when they're doing seed. Make sure, first of all, that you have your seed to soil contact, which is kind of what we're testing here. You need a good soil base and the seed to be touching the soil. So, watering schedule, let's talk watering schedule. So, like you saw, there's no puddles here. This is all a very uniform watering schedule, and what I like to do is for the first week, I like to water lightly 3 times a day. Just like you saw, I'm going to do this 3 times a day, lightly. No puddles, just get the seed and soil moist, all right? Then week number 2, I like to water twice a day. A little bit heavier, but again, no puddles. All right, then week number 3, I like to water deeply once a day. By that time, we're gonna have established grass already. We don't have to worry about the seed getting lost and shifting around. Then in the last week, week 4, we're gonna water deeply every other day. Once a day, water deep. Then what that's gonna do is help the roots starve, because you're actually gonna starve the grass roots so that they actually go deeper and deeper into the ground looking for water. So what that's going to do is make the grass roots grow deeper and deeper into the ground looking for water and nutrients. That's what we want. We want deep root system for our grass. All right, so that's why we're watering every other day deeply. All right, make sure you do this and you're not just continuing with a light moist watering every day. That's not what you want. You're going to have really short roots, and then that's not going to last in the long term once the summer heat comes through. All right, here is the 2-week update of the grass and overseeding test. So here is test number 1. And now this, remember, was when we raked up the ground, tilled it, did it right, the long process, we'll say. So you can see there's a lot of growth pretty consistently all throughout. This is the harder way, but definitely the most fruitful, it seems. So this over here, the second one was done with the spreader. You can see I do have some growth over there, but in the other sections, it's very few and far between. Little piece there, little piece there. But after 2 weeks, just overseeding, I really don't see much results using the recommended spreader settings. Then in the last test, this was really heavy overseeding, heavy-handed. And you can see I have a good chunk over there. Obviously I had a little extra seed there. You know, there's some growing over there. I have some more over here. So there is definitely more, so there's definitely a use for overseeding heavy, just to make sure that you get that seed to soil contact and that all the seed is actually being used. So here are your differences after 2 weeks, and we will see after 3 weeks and 4 weeks and so forth how the grass is growing in each test. Stay tuned. All right, here we are. This is week 3 of this grass seed overseeding test. Here's our 3 tests, and as you can tell, this is our test number 1, where we dug up the ground and tilled the soil, did everything right, and it's growing pretty well now, fairly evenly. Then we have test number 2 here. Now here, this is where we did the overseeding spreader setting, and we did it heavier than usual, but still you can tell there is very little grass that's growing already. And this is 3 weeks in, so I would not be too happy with this if I were overseeding my lawn. This is not much benefit in my opinion. Then we have test number 3, which is a heavy overseeding, we'll say, really heavy-handed. So parts are coming in, not as consistent, but you can tell that more seed here actually does benefit versus less seed there. All right, this is now 1 month later since we originally planted the grass seed for our overseeding test. Here are the results. So as you can see, the one where we tilled the ground and did it properly, this is pretty consistent all the way through. It's a little bit that still has yet to come in, but pretty good. Here is the second section here. This is the overseeding with the spreader. So as you can see, there's a little bit coming over there. There's little bits here and there. But I personally wouldn't be too happy with this. But to each their own, right? Here is the heavy overseeding, we will say, just to see if it really works no matter how much seed you put down. Test number 3 right here. Test number 1. Test number 2. Test number 3. All right, so we're cutting this video off here. It's been 1 month. This is as longest as I usually plant grass seed and water for, so I don't water for any more than a month after seeding. So this should be sufficient enough test to make our conclusions. So in test number 1 here, clearly you can see between all 3 tests, test number 1 is by far the winner. It is so much more beneficial to actually rake up the ground, till the soil, do all the due diligence, we'll say, ahead of time, and you get so much better results, more consistent results all the way through. And all we're really trying to test here is the overseeding method. Which is better, raking up the ground, not raking up the ground? And clearly, when you don't rake up the ground is so hard and compact that the seed really has a hard time of getting through that compacted soil. So I would love to hear what you guys think about this video, because there's going to be a lot of controversy on this. So make sure you let me know in the comments below as far as what maybe you would do differently, what things maybe I didn't incorporate. I really want to hear you guys as far as what I could have done better, or why this overseeding test didn't give as good of success as I was actually expecting. I'm very surprised that this test number 2 here was so sparse. This is pretty shocking, to be honest. And yeah, pretty shocking to say the least. So again, make sure you let me know in the comments below. So clearly, if you put a ton of more seed on, it will matter. You will have some better results, but still. But even with the heavy seeding I did in test number 3, putting all that seed down, I still would not be happy with these results, and I don't think you would be either. I mean, when you spend a month watering with my watering schedule that I talked about, this should be better in my opinion, but it is what it is. So that's the end of this test. I'm not gonna do another week, another 2 weeks, another month just for this grass to get to the perfect height with the rest of my grass. So we know what's going to happen. We can see it already in there. So that's where we're going to cut this video off. Here is your test. This is the full test on overseeding. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and make sure you subscribe and thumbs up, because I'm ripping up this ground just for all of us to learn some things together. Some people may know and some people may not know about what overseeding actually does, and hopefully this video has helped all of us learn together as far as how beneficial overseeding actually is for your lawn. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.